we'll take a few questions now. We have time for questions, and I think there's a few questions in that we'll have a look at. And let's say if we don't get all the answers today, there will be follow-up. So we have a question here. If a food business operator has 10 pallets from its premises going to the UK for distribution, what is the best way to manage certification by the VI? So 10 pallets from its premises going for UK distribution and 10 different drop-offs. What's the best way to manage the certification? I think that question is addressed to Michael, if you want to give a preliminary answer on that. Thanks.
Yeah, it's kind of like the opposite. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like the opposite to what we were talking about. It's really one pickup point and multiple drop-off points. So the certification will be managed by, the cert will be generated at the pickup point, or multiple, depending on the product. Of course, it could be multiple different products. I'll just have a look at the questions here. I can't. Oh yeah, it's not. It's hypothetical, and it doesn't say. So it depends on the number of certs will depend on the number of consignees and the number of different products. So there could be any number, but the good thing for us is they'll be all generated at the one location. So and if the FBO decides that they are only going to send them to one distribution center in GB, then they can all be certified to the one distribution center rather than to a load of different destinations. But that depends on what the food business operator wants. So from our point of view, it's easy because it sounds like it can be done at one premises. It's either a production premises or a cold store.
Thanks, Michael. Another question then, are there a list of companies where we can source the Overmark tape for sealing pallets for the linear groupage?
First of all, that tape is universally available, as far as I know. Lots of companies use it already on their packaging. There's nothing special about it. The actual tape. It's not tamper-proof tape. It's the seal that's tamper-proof, not the tape. So there are companies, but we don't. I don't know them off the top of my head.
Okay, we can see if there's any list that we can forward up with.
We can have a look. Yeah.
So there's a query here, I suppose. Can these instructions shown on the screen be emailed? I take it that's in relation maybe to Kevin and Jared's presentations. So we do have them. We will have them up on the YouTube channel, and we will be following up with the issuing the presentations to the attendees. So I think that should cover that. A question here then, has DAFM discussed and agreed with DEFRA that the 4-digit NC code is acceptable to them?
Hi Tony, I'll jump in on that. The reason the 4-digit NC codes are actually only accepted on traces is if you look at the DEFRA certs, they only list the CN codes to the 4-digit level. So Sante have decided that that's how they'd code the system, that they'd match the DEFRA requirements exactly. So it's to match the DEFRA requirements. So yes, it's what we're trying to please DEFRA.
Okay. Can the approval code for the food business operator be the same for the consignor and the consignee? For example, if the food business operator is the exporter and the importer. So I suppose that's a food business operator that has a premises both here and in the UK, and they want to move product.
They should have a different approval number, though. They should have a UK approval number. It'd be different records on the traces system. You could have the one company ship it to their own establishment in the UK. That happens quite regularly, but it would be a different record on traces because it would be obviously a GB establishment the consignment's going to.
Yeah, so I guess if it's the same company, but they would have an approval in the UK and the code matching that, and they would have, of course, the Irish code. So for clarification, is there a difference between RoRo accompanied and unaccompanied? and what should the food business operator insert?
Sorry, is that we might need more information on that. I'm assuming that's whether or not the actual trailer or the truck or lorry is actually bringing the consignment through the border inspection post, or whether it's been dropped off and picked up by a tractor unit. The guidance that we've had so far is to enter the unique container number that is leaving the premises, as if that's what the veterinary office can sign off on, and that's what will be presented at the BIP. But we're actually going to trial multiple scenarios with GB shortly, and we should have more information for that on you at a later date.
Okay, thanks for that. So next, is there a charge for the food business operator requesting health certificates?
The answer is no. The department policy is that there is no charge for health certificates.
Okay, thanks for that, Michael. And where do we get pallet seals? If using them, will we need to input this pallet seal number when generating the health certificate on traces?
Fiona, do you have any idea where they got the blue ones? For instance, don't mention the name of the company, just you.
It was a company in the UK, and they were ordered online. And as far as I know, there's 5 different companies in the UK doing various models of tamper-proof seals.
Okay, thanks for that. This might be for Jared. Is there a specific template for the CSV file available so that the company can use it to set it up?
There is. So each individual CSV file is specific to the actual certificate. There is a guide available on the gov.ie website, and there's an annex to that guide that gives you guidance on how to access the CSV files specific to each cert and how to then modify them for your own use. So that will be sent to you as an email following the webinar, or in the email that we send following the webinar.
Okay, this might be outside our scope, but we might have some information on, are all the health certificates on the system, and there's specifically an EHC for pet food has only been released by the UK last week, and they're wondering if that's available on the trace system yet. I don't have information on that myself now. I suppose as we got them, we were putting them up or getting them put up from with the commission. So just don't know if anybody has any information on that, but we'll be following up. But it will be, I'm sure, once the health certificate has been released, there will be moves to get it up on the traces system.
Yeah, and we haven't dealt very much with pet food specifically, but if and our staff don't certify pet food as such, but we do certify category 3 animal byproduct. If that was coming out of a premises under our control, then we can generate certificates for that. But I haven't seen the pet food or the category 3 certificate.
Okay, thanks, Michael. So, query: should we request hauliers to register on traces to ensure they are available for selection? Kevin, you might want to take that one.
Yes, we would. So far, the food business operators, the big groups, have sent me a list of their hauliers with their name, their address, their air code, and their Department of Transport approval number. And I have put them all up on both Classic Traces and on Traces NT. We would highly recommend it.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, so DAFM have advised us in order to get the necessary certification signed off, the following will be required. The transport company will need to provide us with the container/trailer number and the registration number of the vehicle that will be carrying the goods to the customer destination approximately 2 days in advance of the load going. Please note that if a lorry is collecting the goods from the SHD only to transfer to another at your depot, that it must be the details of the lorry delivering to the customer of destination. So I suppose they're wondering about a change of registration, how soon they need the registration numbers for the preparing the cert.
I don't know, Kevin, can you answer that?
Sorry, I can't really, Michael, because literally that's between the food business operator and the transport company. they, in my opinion, they'd want to get it as soon as they can, as it's possible for them to get it. But the responsibility for that is on the transport, the transport and the food business operator. It's not really a question that I can give a definitive answer to.
That's fine.
Okay. I think the important thing is that the correct registration is on the IPAF system, which we're not discussing here at the moment.
Yeah.
When will we have details of the health certification from the UK? What is the cost to generate a health certificate? And what is the likely cost from the UK side? So we've covered the cost, but we're not charging. When will we have details of the health certification from the UK? Well, I suppose those are on the Traces system now, or they have been put up as far as we know. The ABP one may not be up yet, for the animal byproducts, but I'm sure it's in development. So I suppose what's in there is in there. If people want to go in and have a look and search and get familiar with it, that's what they should do. And if there's any specific cert that they're still waiting for that they can't find, they can come back to us maybe, and we'll see what the situation is.
We don't know anything about costs on the UK side. We know that they charge for certificates coming over this way, but I don't know if they charge for product going into the country.
So there was mention of the invoice or the delivery document. So are we recommending that the business uploads the invoice and delivery docket to the Traces along with traceability information? Maybe Jared, you mentioned that in your presentation. I don't think that's exactly what you were thinking.
No, it's not necessarily. So what we need essentially is the information that you use to generate the cert. So it can be any of those items, but not necessarily those items. We just need to be able to verify the consignment details essentially. So the traceability information is the most vital, but if you had a CMR, that'd be perfectly sufficient in addition to the traceability information.
Okay, so for clarification, is the rule one health cert per place of unloading? So this is at destination. That means for groupage with multiple places of multiple destinations, multiple places of unloading will require multiple health certificates. I think that's the case, Michael, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we don't. Yeah, but we don't talk about unloading. We talk about consignees. Where's the product going? So if you tell us it's going to 3 consignees, we have to issue 3 certificates. If you tell us it's going to 1 consignee, we will issue 1 certificate. So it depends on how many consignees you tell us about. But place of unloading doesn't really make or mean anything as such. It's a consignee that goes on to the certificate.
The next question here is, do you need back certs from a third country if the third country is the United Kingdom to put together an export health certificate? So I presume that's product that has come in from the UK and maybe moving back out again or put together with other products. Michael?
You absolutely do. The UK is no longer a member of the EU. It's not exempt from intra-community certification. So anything that comes in from the UK into Ireland, whether it's going out again or not, has to be certified from the 1st of January this year. So we will be looking for the CHED and or the certificate that came with it.
Okay, thanks for that. We maybe already have touched on this one. Under the linear model, if a business operator is sending 10 pallets to the UK as part of a groupage load, with 5 going to one customer or establishment and 5 to another, do we need 1 or 2 export health certificates? Well, I suppose it's the destination again, isn't it, Michael? 2?
Yeah, a minimum of 2 and maybe more if there are different types of commodity in those 10 pallets. So if you have composite products, meat, fresh meat, 2 different species will require different certs. So it's cert, it's species, it's commodity, and consignee. They will determine the number of certs.
Okay, so will DAFN be in a position to certify virtually without being on site at the food business operator, assuming all the required information has been uploaded on Traces?
There's no virtually at the moment. Certificates have to be fresh, signed, wet as we call them, and with the load. So When we get e-certification, which we may well get with Traces NT down the road, then virtual is a reality. But one way or the other, even if the VI is not present at the site of loading, the certificate has to get there to be in the hands of the driver.
Okay, thanks, Michael. This one's relating, I think, under the Incoterm delivered duty paid, the exporter will also be the importer on the customs paperwork. So should the information going on traces match this, or should the consignee be the final user of the product? So I think.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm completely unfamiliar with customs rules, but the consignee, the final user, it doesn't have to be the final user. It could be going to a depot in GB and then distributed from there. So it doesn't have to be the final user. We will accept whatever consignee you tell us is the consignee. Jared, I presume they have to be registered on Traces, do they?
No, in fact, actually, the consignee can be inserted ad hoc. Now, ultimately, we've been told that on NT, it eventually will become a list of approved establishments in the UK, potentially. But even on that, no, the consignee is an ad hoc entry. So it can be any consignee as long as you have the verification that it is that consignee.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks for that. Just a question here. What is the time frame notice required when requesting an export health certificate pre-transport?
I'm not sure. I think it's 24 hours, but I'm not entirely sure.
I presume if there's traceability checks and documentation checks to be done, the sooner that's submitted, the better.
Absolutely.
Because it can take some time to go through all the relevant documentation and the checks that are required before the certificate is signed. So I presume there's no point in just submitting a certificate and expecting it to be signed immediately. So just bear that in mind.
And I think some of this is pretty routine, so hopefully people will know in advance. Obviously, there will be ad hoc, new loads, new customers, all that, but we will need a certain amount of time to get the information together.
So query here, if a truck registration number is recorded and the truck breaks down, how do we deal with that when the load needs to be changed to another truck?
I may feel that if you don't mind, because basically, as long as the original health cert accompanies the load, so you will need to have, if you're changing truck, the cert will need to go with it. But if the question is referring to whether the truck number will now be incorrect on the cert, what we've heard from DEFRA is that the local BCP should be contacted in that instance. Contact them, inform them of the situation and ask them, will a new cert be needed, or will this cert that has an incorrect truck registration number but all of the rest of the information is correct, will that be accepted? Because ultimately, again, we're meeting their requirements. So that's the guidance we've got from DEFRA to contact the individual border control post. I believe that's the latest guidance anyway.
Thanks, Jared. So the next question is, who's responsible for placing the seal on the pallet?
That's an open question. We really don't have not agreed to that between ourselves or with the food business operators. So in some of the UK literature, it says a commercial seal, which means that it could technically be applied by a food business operator, but to become an official seal, there has to be some connection with the competent authority, and that hasn't been agreed or decided. So we're not going to give an answer on that here and now.
So will VIs be available out of normal hours to certify certs should dispatch delays occur?
I think that's one for you, Tony.
Yes, well, I suppose it's certainly not. I suppose the thing is, if delays occur, but we can't promise 24/7. We have normal working hours, and it's not business as usual. So we're looking at cases individually to see what the requirements are and how we manage. But certainly, it won't be on demand. So we will have to, outside of normal working hours, there will be certainly restricted if any service. So that we'll have to look at that as we move forward on a case-by-case basis. But we certainly don't have, we certainly won't be business as usual. There will be changes for business operators and for their procedures and practices that they'll have to consider as we get closer to October. Next question is the timeline for the health certificate from the time of departure. I'm not sure exactly what's been asked there. I presume that the cert will have to travel with the consignment and be in the hands of the driver. This is what the UK have told us to date, that they're looking for the hard copy of the cert, and that can be inspected anytime when the consignment arrives in the UK.
Yeah, that's our understanding. The question isn't entirely clear. The intention is to have the certificate ready for the truck driver before they leave. So that's why it's important to notify us when certificates are needed, because our understanding is they have to have a fresh copy of the certificate in the lorry driver in their hand when they get to the border inspection post. So unless you want a speed runner to be running after them with the cert, they should have it in their hand when they're leaving.
Does the official veterinarian have to inspect the product prior to issuing the health certificate, and what rate of physical inspections pre-issue of certs?
Well, first of all, they don't have to inspect all, but we also have technical staff who may carry out some pre-certification inspections, but we do not carry out 100%, and we have not decided on the rate of physical inspections because we know there's going to be a lot of loads leaving, and we have a limited number of staff, so we will be carrying out a certain number, but we don't know how many.
So this might be one for Jared. Under meat products, we have different specs under the 1C NC code. I was under the impression that it was just one health certificate. Is that correct?
So yeah, no, I think the confusion there was, so for the fresh meat certs, so the fresh and minced meat certs, that is, they're separated by species. However, the meat products, so if it's been treated in some way, so it now constitutes a meat product, you can have multiple species for the meat products, meat preps, and composite product cert. So when you're going on to traces, you select the cert, you select the species, and then you go in to enter the information. But if it's a fresh meat or minced meat cert, it would be distinct. So each individual species has their own individual cert.
Okay, follow-up question here in relation to the rule into the Republic of Ireland for DAFM. The rule is one health certificate for place of destination, even if the consignee is the same parent company. This implies the rule into the GB will be different. If the consignee is the parent with multiple place of destination, will only require one health certificate and one IPAS entry.
I wouldn't. I would be not. I think that's for discussion offline. It's too complex.
Yeah, I think that's something that could be taken up locally with the representatives, DAFM people, and just to tease out exactly what's involved there. Without having specific details, it's just hard to answer that. So maybe you could follow up that way. So how do we certify product that is in cold storage and produced prior to the requirements, where the raw materials may not have been received with a pre-export cert?
Products going into cold storage in Ireland into a DAFM approved cold store from a DAFM approved premises do not necessarily need pre-export certificates if the requirements for certification are the same as EU regulations. So there won't be any issue if there isn't a pre-export certificate from another DAFM approved premises. So all the requirements for GB are the same as EU based, more or less. So there, but on a case-by-case basis, we will take that.
Okay, a query here, is it the same process requesting a dairy health certificate using dairy product certification system?
It's slightly different, but I'm not entirely familiar with it. I don't think there's anyone on the call here that's familiar with. Fiona might be aware.
No, I understand there is some training on the
trials.
We're still working out the nuances of the process. It will be a little bit different.
Yeah, it's a different computer system. So, and there's the dairy admin people are involved as well. So there is a sort of, it's a different method. On the other hand, the people who are looking for certification, a lot of them will have already experience of dealing with the dairy certification system. So it may not be such a change.
Yeah, query here, if a vet is assigned for a region is on annual leave, will there be cover for health certificates in his or her absence?
Absolutely.
We do our best on that. Yeah, we always cover, if no matter what the issue is, if a meat plant or whatever is, there's a VI assigned, if they're on leave, then there's cover provided. How should the health certificate travel with the load? I think we just covered that. It is the hard copy that we've been told at the moment. That's the position of the UK, that they need the physical hard copy that has been signed and stamped by the issuing officer.
And if down the road they opt for an e-version, all the better. There'll be no panic then. But as far as I understand as well, a copy or a PDF will have to be emailed to the IPAF system in advance of the load arriving at the border inspection post.
Yes, that's right. Where there's a change of truck registration, is it usually updated and certified copy on the health certificate and sent to DEFRA?
No, I don't think that's required.
We wouldn't usually issue a new cert for a change in registration, but the correct details should be on the IPAF system. That's my understanding. And just a comment here is a lot of food producers produce 7 days a week, and we do understand that. Unfortunately, these requirements have been brought in as a result of Brexit and the UK demands, so we can only do what we can within the resources available. So that's, I think, come to the end of the questions. As I say, these will all be followed up with in written format in due course. Important.
Tony, there was just two last ones there. Did you see them? Will there be a webinar for dairy?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I missed those. Yeah.
And fish.
Yeah, my understanding is that there will be some training on the dairy side. I haven't any details. And we take note of the fish. The process in the fish, if they're using health certificates, is largely the same. So it's use of the traces system are required. Some of that will fall outside our competency. It's with Sea Fisheries Protection Agency, and maybe we contact them for further details on that. But understand for the dairy, there will be training. And what is DAFN normal hours? I suppose we're talking about, I suppose, really, I suppose 7:30 to 6:30 maybe. Outside of that, we're moving into I suppose what we call unsocial hours and getting people. It's outside the normal working day. That's not to say there won't be any certification, but we can't commit to anything at this stage. We have to look at the volume of the requests and where they are and the needs. But that's all under discussion at the moment. So if there's no further questions, thank you everybody, particularly the presenters, for taking the time and answering the questions. Thanks to everybody else for participating. I'll say this isn't the end. Our next webinar is coming up in the 14th of July on bovine fresh meat and minced meat cert. So that's a specific webinar. So if that's of interest to you, you should tune into that one. And then we have another series following on from that for specific certs. So As I say, when we get more information, we will let you know. But in the meantime, you should be getting very familiar with the operation of the trace system, familiar with organising traceability documents that will be required by the certifying officers, and the CN codes and category of products that you're producing. And of course, keep talking to your local staff and inspectors and tease out any issues locally that you can. As I say, this webinar will be put up on the JAFM YouTube channel for review, and we'll follow up with the presentations. So thanks very much to everybody. And I think at that, we'll close the webinar for today. Thank you.
Thanks very much.